And all that adds up, right? Small things add up. Sorry, I accidentally swiped my screen away. So let me get back to Canva. I apologize. I am very challenged today, apparently. I'm challenged every day, but you know, today's extra. Anybody else implement anything? Think about it. And I just wanted to say that I heard an executive director say that for the first year a board member is on the board for their first year, all they have ask them to do is write thank you notes. That's it. That's the only thing. And it's really engaging for board members to do that, right? They get that sense of gratitude going, and so it just helps engage them a bit. So that's a really good place to get started too. So both of you, good job. Anybody else? That's all right if you don't have anything. Sabrina, you want to check in on their mindsets today?
Yeah, let's check in on the mindset. So I know everybody said it was a busy week and some of you got some things done, but I'm going to challenge you to at least try one or two of the things that we talked about last week, because action will only happen when you move, right? And we're not saying do the big lift. It's going to be, like Libby said, it's going to be small incremental steps, because this is all about setting up for success for the end of the year. We don't want the donors to just hear from you in November or December when you start to ask. So even someone reached out, I can't remember who, but they said they were doing 2 phone calls a week. And I thought that is good, because that's small enough to get accomplished and you don't overwhelm yourself. So even if you just say, hey, these are my top 10 donors or top 20 donors, and I'm going to make 2 calls a week, and then I'm going to ask a couple of board members to make a call, you can get that knocked out really, really quick. Now, you know which board members will execute on it, and you know which ones won't, but just make sure they have a script, because your mindset has to be, we're going to get this done and we're going to think big. The end of the year is going to be better than what it was last year or what it was the quarter before. And just remember that on this mindset thing, there was 5 things that, that was identified for those organizations that raise big dollars, and for those CEOs or development directors that raise big dollars. They understand, 1, that people are generous. So people are generous. They are going to give. They're going to give to the organization that makes them feel valued. They're going to give to the organization that asks, and not just ask, but make them feel valued, and not value as an ATM machine. Number 2 is, it's going to take courage. So if you are like, oh, I don't want to make no phone calls, you're not asking for money. Not at this time. So put the plan in motion where you're going to reach out to at least 2 people a day if it's phone calls, or if you're going to sit down and do cards and send them out in the mail. Whatever that plan is, it takes courage to start executing. Because here's the thing, and I used to say this to myself and to my staff as well. We all have the same 24 hours. And especially with me, sometimes I do the tasks that make me feel good, but are not necessary. So if anybody knows me, I like dabbling in the marketing world. And I can spend hours on Canva putting this together and putting that together, but is that really going to generate revenue? Perhaps not. The other thing was when I was the CEO of my organization and I worked with kids. I loved using some of my time to go out and play with the kids and do programming and things like that. But remember, I said, as the CEO, my top job was to take care of the board and to take care of the money. So I had to learn to reallocate my time to those two priorities and not go dibble dabble in program or go play with the kids, as my mama said I did for the 20 years that I was with the organization. Now, are those things fun sometimes? No, but you can make them fun. When you start developing those real relationships with your board members or those real relationships with your donors, it can be. And then number 3 is be adaptable. So try the phone calls. And if that doesn't feel good and organic to you, then do the note card. But what you cannot do is go radio silence. You have to put a plan in place now where you're communicating and touching your donors between now and November Giving Tuesday. That's not asking for money. So pick your plan and say you're going to do it. And then if you don't hit it, it's okay. Give yourself grace, give yourself space, but don't go radio silence. And if you have to adapt and say, well, the phone calls didn't work for me, I felt awkward, then I'm going to do handwritten notes. But whatever that is, go with it. And you got to be a risk taker. That was number 4. You have to be a risk taker. So one of the things that could be risky and working on mindset is I don't trust my board to do the thank you calls. And I don't trust my board to write the thank you notes. Be a risk taker. Pick up the phone, talk to them, share with them how important this is, and put that trust in them to execute. Is it risky? Sometimes, yes, it is. I will be the first to tell you it is risky, but look at your board and say, of this list, here's who I think will execute on it. And if you want to control risk, then do the phone calls during a board meeting. Carve out 20 minutes of the board meeting to do phone calls. Everybody in the same room or on the same Zoom in the same space. And this is what we're going to do. You just prepare them, send in the information, and we're all going to do it together. And everybody's going to stay on camera if we're on Zoom, so I can see that you're talking on your phone. So the other thing is feedback. Number 5, feedback. I always say this. Pick up the phone, ask for feedback. Where feedback is given, money soon follows. So mindset, we're not thinking small, we're thinking big. We're going to have the best end of the year ever, right? Oh, I hate the way that sounded, how that came out. That's what we're doing, okay? So with that in mind, get your mindset right. That's our check-in. And I am then now going to lead into Libby is making the case and spending some time on that. Does
Yes.
anybody have
Do you
any
mind? I just want to.
issues? Sorry, did anybody have any mindset issues
No,
that they want to talk about? Okay, Libby. Sorry, I wanted to make sure I acknowledge
I think
that.
that's great. Thank you. So before I go to this, what you just said reminds me of a saying that a really successful fundraiser told me, which is, if you want advice, ask for money. If you want money, ask for advice. And that has stuck with me for my whole career. Once I heard that, I love that.
Yeah.
So whenever you can ask for advice, input, feedback, get it. And you're right, it leads to donations, right? It's another way to engage people. Okay, so I just wanted to pause and take a second to say, the year end is important, and why is that? And it is because of all the activity at the year end, right? 45 to 50% of annual online revenue comes in during the year end. That's huge. And the bigger one is that 28% of nonprofits raise between 26 and 50% of their annual funds during the year-end ask. And I've seen a couple of different data points on this. Like I've seen it a couple of different ways, but a lot of organizations raise a half of their annual fund during the year end. It's huge. So just keep that in mind. It's important. And now we'll get to case statements. So a case statement is important, and it really is about making the case for why donors should give to your organization. And this is why we're starting what feels like super early on getting you to plan out your year-end campaign, because the case statement is really an opportunity for you to spend some time thinking and writing and getting feedback. It's a great tool for getting feedback. So um, you want to pull together a case statement, and we're going to talk about what is included in that. The workbook now, as of today, has a lot of information about developing your case statement, a lot of instruction, some links to examples, some links to some other helpful documents, but it will help you walk through this. So for the slides, we'll go through it a bit and know that you have even more information to help guide you in it in the workbook. So the case statement should start with an emotional opening. That can be a little story, that can be something else, but think about what would grab your readers and pull them in so they want to read more, right? So an emotional opening is important. Um, your mission statement and vision statements, of course, can need to be part of this. And then what is the need? What is the need that you are helping to address with your services and activities, right? So what is your need? What are the needs of the people that you are serving? Um, and so then what's your solution for that need, right? So if, for example, I like to use the example of, pets that don't have homes, right? Dogs that need homes. Um, that's a very clear, easy, tangible need, right? These dogs need, a loving home. They're in shelter right now and that kind of stuff. What is the solution then, right? The solution is that you can do that. You can provide them, you can link them to a loving home, but you need money to be able to do that, right? And then what are the outcomes and impact? And you want to get clear on that. The outcomes are about the dogs or about the people that you serve. So what outcomes, do you help them achieve? Um, for dogs and homeless dogs, right? The outcome is they now live in a wonderful, loving home, right? And they're fed and they're housed and they're happy and they get to take walks and play, right? The impact of that is at a community level. So the impact of, a dog rescue is that there aren't dogs out there suffering, and there aren't dogs that are out running around, that could, some of them be a bite hazard or whatever, but that's the impact. It's at a community level. And so what's the call to action, right? So you have to be clear about that. And people often overlook, what is the call to action? What are you asking them to do? Make it as clear as possible, and then provide proof of your credibility. And you do that by showing them things like the makeup of your revenue, what your expenses are. If you have an accreditation with GuideStar, which is now called Candid, if you have earned that bronze or gold or platinum level accreditation, excuse me, you want to share that. You want to share who your CEO is, who your board is. You want to talk about how you manage donor monies and account for them, and keep them separated enough that you understand like where the money's going. Excuse me, I have to cough again. And then provide contact information. Somebody might need to reach out to you and have a conversation. There might be somebody out there that's like, well, I think I might want to donate some stock. How do I do that? I might want to get my corporation to match my donation. How do I do that? I want to send a check, but this is all online giving. Where do I send that? Make sure everything's in there. Now, your case statement is not necessarily a document that you're going to send out there or put out there on social media, right? It's usually a document where you'll grab pieces of it to use. So, but it is a great exercise to pull it together, make sure that people review it and give you input and that you edit it and you run it by several people. That's part of why we do this early, because you want to spend time with that. You can't whip this together in a 2-hour session and have it be quality. You need to work on it. You need to share it. You need to have, and don't just share it with people who are going to say, oh, it's great. Share it with people that are going to really pick it apart and really give you good input as far as, does it really make me want to give? Okay, make sense? Any questions on any of that? Again, the workbook goes into detail, but and there are some examples, but this is a good exercise. This case statement can actually serve as your annual fund language and the why for 2025. If you pull it together now, right, it has a lot of utility. It can be the place where you go to get language for grant applications. It can be used for a lot of things. It's a good exercise. Every single nonprofit should have an active case statement. Every year you should develop a case statement. And this is in conjunction too with, I don't, depends on the size of your organization, but definitely if you're not the chief executive, you want to talk to your chief executive about, about it. Like, is this what we're really asking for, right? Is this what we want to put out into the world? And same with the, a CFO, if you have a CFO or an accountant or whatever, who's on staff, you want to make sure that, you're asking for the right types of money and for the right things, because they'll have strong opinions about that. So just share it, and get input. Make sure it's what your organization is comfortable putting out there. Board members this can be a great place to engage board members. Board members will give you the wonderful feedback. Send it to them out and ask them, does this make you want to donate? If you didn't know us as well as you do, would you donate after reading any of this? They'll give you really good feedback on it. How many of you have a case statement? I would love to know that. Have you developed one before? Could you share that? Have you developed one before? And if so, was it a valuable exercise? Did you use it? I'm not seeing anybody want to weigh in. How many of you have not created a case statement before? I'll ask it in that way. Okay, thank you for the honesty. Love that. That's why you're here, right? And the workbook will help you with that. Okay,
And
if
I'll
nothing else,
say this,
yeah,
on a case statement. I know a lot of people like, well, why do I need a case statement? I can
yeah,
tell you from my point of view, when I was a CEO and sat in that seat, without a good case statement, it was very hard for me to raise money for our annual campaign, for our capital campaign. And I know Libby talked about all the different campaigns before. But that case statement, if you start with a good case statement, as Libby was saying, then you can give that case statement can be the foundation for what goes on your website, for what boilerplate information you have for your grant applications. And a lot of times, if you're visiting face to face with donors too, if you take that one sheet case statement, it'll have everything that you need to kind of guide that conversation when you're having those conversations. So case statements are something that are very relevant and very good to have if we take the time to pause and plan. And remember, people said that they were going to pause and plan, and this is what this is all about, pausing and planning.
yeah. I'm going to share an example with you, just to give you an idea. And this is actually a case that they've put on their website, right? Which is brilliant. This is Habitat for Humanity, and this is theirs. And so, I encourage you to Google and look at other people's case statements or case for support. That those words are kind of used interchangeably. Case statement is usually a smaller document. A case for support is often more complex, like it's for a capital campaign or a campaign that's for capital and endowment or, something like that, like a bigger campaign, but you'll get the ideas with this. So I'm just going to kind of scroll through and, see if you notice anything. The first thing I noticed, by the way, and this is a really, really good thing to keep in mind, is if you're putting photos of people, they need to be looking at the camera. If they're not looking at the camera, they have little effect. They're looking right at the prospective donor, right? You're
And I got
making
one
eye
more
contact.
tip around that. Libby, if you can go
Yeah.
back to the photo. Notice, this is the marketing side of me. Notice it's one person. I think
Yes.
oftentimes, because I did this myself and learned along the way, we say, well, we service so many people. And so you'll put this like group of people in this picture and a group of this, and that overwhelms people because when you come to them and you're asking them for $100 or 250 or even $10,000, whatever that number is, in their mind, they say, well, that little money is not going to have a big impact on all of those people. But if
Yeah.
you put one person there, they can visualize their donation impacting that one person's life. And that's really
Yes.
what we want to do. We want to impact a person.
Yes. That is perfect. That was such a good comment. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
That's exactly right. Like this is a people to people business, right? Another saying that I will never forget that somebody said to me about all this is organizations don't have needs, people have needs. So it's never about your organization. People do not donate to help your organization. Unless they're really close to you, like board members, staff, friends and family of you, and they want to help people. They want to help the people, right? So that's what that's about. It's making a connection with the person. And so, tell me what else you notice in this case for support. What stands out for you as I kind of scroll through? I'll put the link to this in the chat in just a minute, so you all can have access to it. Um, so I love this right here. The problem is vast, and right, there are no people in here, but it's perfect because it's you can see the problems, right? You can see the problems. Um, they get into a little bit of statistics in here. And that's fine, but they started with the woman. They started with the person. It's okay if you have a few statistics, but you have to have people. That has to be people first, right? So they have a video in here about how racial inequities limit homeownership. So in that regard, I love that they're doing some advocacy work and education, right? And educating people about, what are the causes of homelessness. So love this little window too that kind of rolls up. Because of ever rising and often unpredictable rents, many parents are forced to make impossible choices about food, healthcare, and education. And then some more pictures. So I love this. And they're giving it to people in bite-sized chunks too, right? So that but I was fascinated with it. And when I found this, I watched the whole thing, kept entertained, and that says a lot because I have ADHD. So if it passes my test. So anyway, um, what about this photo? Beautiful, right? This young woman smiling, love it. Habitat is uniquely suited to address the problem. And she's smiling because she got a house, right? We're going to make that assumption. So, and they talk about then, after all
Libby,
that,
you
what they
froze
do.
again.
Pardon?
You
I
froze
freeze?
again. Mhm.
Well, I'm doing away with my video again. I tried. Love the photos. And they do have some group photos, but they're families, right? But they still have a lot of individual folks. Most of them are looking directly at the camera. So they do a nice job. And more videos down here. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. I see that there are Yeah, thank you, mommy. I got blurry again, didn't I? How's the picture now? Can you see it? Is it blurry still or did it clear up?
It's still
Okay.
blurry.
Is it
Blurry.
blurry? Okay. I'm gonna stop that and see if I can, if it'll clear up when I share the slides again. How about that? How is that?
We're still waiting for the slides to load. Oh, they're blurry.
Oh, no.
Do you want me to share on my end and see if
Yes,
it?
please.
Okay,
Yes,
no
please.
problem.
Thank you.
Let's
Sorry
see.
about that,
Now, okay, I'm
everyone.
gonna ask for grace from the tech folk because that's just not what I do. So give me a moment. Okay,
I'm
I've
gonna
put up the
look while you're doing that.
presentation.
I'm gonna put this link to the to that web page that I just shared with you in the chat, so you all have that.
I'm gonna do presentation.
Yep.
Okay, what do you see? Do you see the presentation or?
Yeah, do hit the present.
I thought I did. You see?
No.
Telling you, tech gods don't like me. Present, present,
Yeah, and then click that purple present button at the bottom.
and hit the purple present button at the bottom. Okay, then I hit enter until I go to where I need
You
to be.
are good.
Right
Perfect.
there. Right there. That's where I need to be. So this is actually me, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so now my notes went away. So yeah, you're gonna get Sabrina then because don't have the notes to go by, but this is what I do, so I should be fine. Y'all wish me luck. So here we go. So targets for your year-end campaign. There's several types of donors. So here's the assumption, and this is what I don't want you to panic if this is not the case for you. This is assuming that you have a CRM system, right? So your CRM system is your customer or client relation management system. It's a place where you have a list of your donors, you input how much they gave, you know the last time they gave, that kind of information. Now I say that to say don't panic because when I first embarked on this journey for probably like 15, no, let's be honest, probably like 10 years of a 20-year stint, I did not have a CRM. I just did not invest in one. Probably one of the worst mistakes that I ever made. I will be true confession with you because it's very hard to build these quality relationships for the organization if you don't have a good CRM system. You notice I said for the organization because Sabrina as an individual had great relationships with the donors, but all the information was in my head. And then we got the CRM system, but then once you get a system, you got to pay somebody to input the information, right? So it took me another about 5 years to figure that part out. Like it was like one of those other duties as assigned kind of situations. So the information, garbage in, garbage out. So I'm just taking you on my journey. So about the time I was ready to retire, I got sick. So then the person who inherited the organization from me basically got a CRM system that didn't have the right information in it. So a lot of the information was still where? In Sabrina's head. So if you're in that situation, no worries. You can still do this, but learn from my journey, right? Get yourself a good CRM system. Get you somebody who's going to input the information and then maintain it so that you can use it to develop relationships for the organization. Because what happens is, learning from my mistake, is the donors that was giving to our organization when I was there, they're what you consider lapsed donors now. Because the new person that's there was not aware that they were giving because there was no vetted system to hold this information. So I wanted to start off with that caveat because I always do, so someone can learn from my mistakes. So let's talk about retained donors. Now there are retained donors. What you're trying to do is make sure that you are retaining your donors. So these are people who have given and you are trying to retain them. So they move from first-time donors, and now you're trying to retain those donors. So those can be some targets for your year end. Then you have what you call lapsed donors. These are your donors who used to give. They gave last year, or they gave a couple of years ago, but they haven't given in the recent history of things. Maybe they are former board members. Maybe they gave to another type of campaign and they haven't given since then. These are called your lapsed donors. So your year end can really help with those lapsed donors as well. And then you have the opportunity at year end to embrace your reoccurring donors. Those are your reoccurring donors. I like to consider those your major donor, not your major donor, sorry, your monthly donors, or those who are giving continually. Those are what you call your reoccurring donors. And the other thing that you want to look at is the number of donors who have increased their donations over time. See, these are all the ways you can kind of segment when you are, and I used to hate that word, and I still hate that word because it sounds so technical, right? When you start going down the Google rabbit hole, that's what I call it, the Google rabbit hole, and they start talking about fundraising and they start talking about, oh, you have to segment your donor list and you have to do all that. Woo, I get a glaze because that sounds like way too much tech or way too much data or whatever that is. This is what they're talking about. They're talking about putting your donors in these categories. Who are your donors you're trying to retain? Who are the lapsed donors? Who are the reoccurring donors? What are the donors that you're trying to get an increase, donation from? Who are your major donors? Now, major donors. This is always the situation. People will say, well, I don't know what a major donor is. How do you define a major donor? And here's my response. It's always been my response. It is, and I didn't coin this response. I think I learned it from Amy Eisenstein, who's a consultant out there as well. A major donor or a major gift is an amount of it when you get a check in the mail and that amount makes you squeal and you want to share it with someone, you've hit your major donor mark. For every organization, that is going to be different. For the organization that I ran, $500 at the time, at the very beginning, when we started working on this annual campaign. I use annual campaign, year-end campaign interchangeably. It was $500. For us, anybody who gave $500, we consider a major donor. As time evolved, that went on to be $1,000. That was a major donor. For the museum board that I serve on, a major donor is anybody who gives $1,500 or more. If you're with a university or a bigger organization, that number could be $10,000 or $25,000. So a major donor or a major gift is that check you get in the mail that makes you squeal. That's your starting point. So then you segment or divide your list by the people you think are able to give at $500 or more. Let's put it at $500 or more. Then you have your segment of your board engagement and your board giving. Yes, your board should be giving to the organization. Your board should be giving not only time and not only talent, they should be giving treasure as well. So what does that board engagement and that board giving look like? What do you think that number is going to be? And how are you going to separate that? And I'm going to say something about board giving because this is the audience and this is the time to say it. Not only should your board members be giving at a certain level, And I know there's always this conversation around, well, they're giving their time and their talent. And why do we, treasurer, you're already having them volunteer. And I don't think that that's something that should be done. Look, if you're not willing to give your treasure and you just want to give your time and your talent, then you will make a great committee member. Because the board of directors is the family of the organization, they're the top officials or governing body. It's all three elements: time, talent, and treasure. And the best thing that I have seen done to eliminate that, well, what minimum do we ask them for, or what should we do? Or we don't want to set an amount because everybody has different abilities to give, and I've heard it all before. The best practice that I've seen has been to create a society and just say board members have to be a member of that society. And whatever level you start your society off at, that's the minimum, and then you can increase it from there. So for example, the museum has a society, the Heritage Society, and it starts off at 1,500, 2,500, 5,000, 10,000. And what the board commitment is, when they were interviewed for the board and they say we're joining the board and doing all that, is they join the society. And every year at end of year campaign, there's a time in our board meeting where we pass out the pledge cards with the credit card area blank so they can write it in or give us a check, and they join the society at whatever level they said they were going to join, and they provide the credit card information. Because if you don't do it as a conscious effort, it's not going to get done, because June is going to come and nobody's talked about it. And it's going to be time to give again, and you didn't give last year. So it's a whole thing. So that's one of the best practice. I'm kind of digressing, but I needed to make sure I said that as well. So you're going to set a monetary goal based on all of these segments. And then in the workbook, you can indicate a number for each of these areas. How much money, again, do we think from retained, from lapse, from reoccurring, from the number of donors that are going to increase, from major donors, and then from board giving. And that's how you get your target for your end of year campaign. Now, you need to sequence your end of year campaign. Again, segment. I've explained what that is. So next time you read the word segment and it's in this thing right here, you're like, oh, okay, I know what that is. I don't have to get overwhelmed. All they're talking about is, how do I categorize my donors, right? And then once you do that, you're going to make sure that you have a communications plan for each of those levels or for each of those segments, right? So if you're saying it is just me, how am I going to communicate with all of this and do it? There is a way that you can communicate and prioritize. The goal is for you to communicate with all of these different entities, right? Or segments, not entities, segments during this time. July, we're almost at the end, we're in August and September and October. You got three months, right? You might want to say, okay, for my major donors, I'm going to make sure again that we do those phone calls. That's going to be, I'm going to do the phone calls. For my donors I want to retain, I'm going to schedule an email that's going to go out to them that just says, summer is at the end. How was your family vacation? This is what we did at X, Y, and Z, and give them a little impact story. And then you might want to tweak that for your other donor segments. So a lot of this, I think in the nonprofit world, we don't embrace our technology. A lot of this you can automate for those segments that are not major donors. Major donors, I'm going to say to you, try to make sure that it is at least face-to-face, phone call, voice. that's where I will put my energy as far as that. For some other things, you might say, you know, for the monthly givers, September, we're going to do an open house and we're going to invite everybody to the open house. Or it could be everybody that's given us this year, we're going to invite them to an open house. Now, whether they show up or not, that's a whole nother thing. But I know for me, even if I get an invite, it makes me think of the organization, and it makes me think that they're moving forward, that they're being productive, that they're doing things, and they're not just talking and not going to hit me up at the end of the year for lack of a better, right? So once you have some type of idea on how you want to proceed, you go back to your case statement and you look at the draft language that you have in there, so you can create that series of emails. You want to have that consistency kind of across the board, and you want to work harder. You don't, no, you don't. You want to work smarter, not harder. That's why that case statement is really important, because you're going to have exactly the language, what heartstrings you're trying to tug at, what data you're trying to highlight. You're going to have all of that information, and you're going to tweak it for each audience and then go from there. But the goal is for all of this, the goal is for you not to reach out at the end of the year asking for a gift and you have not intentionally communicated with your donors along the way. So of course, that's going to involve email, that's going to involve social media, and we're not going to leave you out there willy-nilly going, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? In the workbook, there is a end of the year email and social media campaign planner that's going to help you organize your emails and organize the social media posts. But again, don't just use emails and social media posts for that segment that we call major donors. You're gonna have to do something different for them. So
Yep.
I think that hopefully, did I use all my time?
Yeah, that was excellent. And I was just gonna, I love that you brought up, you know, if you've got major donors, you know, people that have been loyal to you for years. So I would pick out, who do we need to do a more personal touch with, which would be a phone call or a meeting even. Because those people are going to be offended if you just send them an email. They are. You're not going to raise major gifts through an email, most likely. But what you can do is pick up the phone, call them. I'd like to talk to you about, you know, what we have going on, what our plans are for next year, and see if you would like to, you know, change your gift or whatever, and either meet with them or talk with them on the phone. And that's really important. You can send follow-up, you know, via email after, but I just wanted to highlight that you said that, Sabrina, because that's so critical.
It's very critical. And also, I just want to make sure and reiterate, you're not going to ask them for money.
Right.
You might ask them for advice,
Yeah.
but you're
And you
not
might
going
ask
to
them,
ask them for money.
yeah, for a meeting or another phone conversation or whatever, but yeah. And make sure you
It's
thank them.
critical.
Yeah. So in the workbook also are best practices for writing letters, because mail still works. Snail mail still works. So we default to talking more about email and social media because it's more popular, but sending mail is exceptionally effective still.
It is,
So,
and I will share these 2 points. Last year, I served as a visionary of the year for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and the first thing that they did was ask me for 100 addresses and names so that a letter could be mailed out in the mail. That's how they kicked off their campaign, was mail, snail mail. Also, the museum board that I serve on, they kick off their year-end campaign with snail mail. So basically what they do is for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, as the visionary, you supply them with the names. So it's like names of, and you can look at this from your board members' perspective too. It's name of family members. It's name of people you send Christmas cards to, if you still send Christmas cards to. It's name of people that you have their addresses for. And then you craft the letter and they mail it out. And they get a huge response from that. With the museum board, they send letters to anybody in their system who was a member of that Heritage Society, because they have a CRM system. Anybody who gave to the Heritage Society over the past 3 years, they kick off their campaign with a letter in the mail. They get about a 30% return rate just from sending that letter.
That's high.
That's a very high return rate. And then once that happens, for the people that don't respond to that letter, right? Then they lead into these other sequences. And a lot of that sequence is making phone calls, board members making phone calls and reaching out. So these are best practices. And just because these are, and like LLS is huge, but a local museum in your community is not huge, but they have discovered that this best practice works. And so we're sharing that best practice with you. And again, as Libby said, it's not just sharing that best practice, but we've also provided the template for you to be able to craft your story and use that.
Mary Ann asked how long the workbook will be available for purchase, and I thought maybe others in the session would want to know that too.
I will be sending out an email today with the final workbook. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things that I want to go over is the workbook. My system doesn't do a cutoff, so it will be available. Now I'm like, I might only send one email to remind you, but if you go back to that email, that book will always be there.
Good, thank you. I wanted to ask a question of you. So I love the conversation about snail mail versus email. What you need to learn, you need to figure out like what your donors prefer to, if you can, right? So if somebody sends you a check in the mail, they probably want to get snail mail. If somebody gives online, they probably want to be getting emails. But I wanted to ask you this is a true data point. Which generation prefers snail mail over email? Which generation? Put it in the chat. Which generation do you think prefers snail mail over email? Okay, somebody said Gen X, Gen Z. Okay, keep it coming. Everybody put in their thoughts. Boomers. Okay, so we've got a few covered. Gen X. Oh, but those are both Gen X. Sorry, boomers. Okay. Anybody else want to vote? Are you ready? Here's the drum roll. It's millennials. Millennials prefer snail mail because they deal with email all day long, and they have for a long time, right? Pretty much their whole lives. Yeah. I was shocked at that too, Marianne. I was like, what? I mean, right? Mommy, you almost got it, didn't you? I love it. Okay, so we're ready. Yeah, it does really. And so don't just make assumptions, right? Kind of you can Google stuff, you can, try to figure it out. But yeah, no problem, Carolyn. Thank you. So could you go to the next slide and I'll talk about these couple of slides.
Yes, I can.
This might have thrown you off to have this in here. So you have to you have to be really good storytellers. That, fundraising is really based in good storytelling. And so I saw this on some on a piece that I found, and I wanted to share it with you. So You need to create magical stories. So think of magical, sort of like Disney movies, you know, how they are very dramatic and kind of paint a picture for you. So we can have this version of a story. Once upon a time, there was a girl named Cinderella. She lived with her stepmother and stepsisters. They were mean to her. One day she went to a ball, met a prince, and lost a shoe. The prince found her using the shoe. They lived happily ever after. Now, how exciting was that for you? That was what we do in the nonprofit sector a lot of, which is first this happened and then this happened and then this happened and then this happened and this that. Very boring, very boring, not inspiring. Did it really provide any emotion? Did anything come up for you besides, okay, now it was very factual, right? What about this one? If you shifted it a little. In a grand house bathed in morning light, Cinderella's stepsisters laughed at her, snatching away a bright blue ribbon that once belonged to her late mother. As it fluttered just out of reach, tears filled Cinderella's eyes. That ribbon was more than just a pretty accessory, it was a whisper of love from a time long past. Alone in the room's shadows, Cinderella wished for a single moment where she felt cherished and not invisible. Now that made you feel and envision something, didn't it? That's the difference between just writing a factual story and writing a story that really makes people have a feeling, and they can, in their heads, they can see the vision of it. I encourage you, AI is a good way to do this, right? Don't let AI write your stories originally. You need to actually write real stories, get good at, somebody needs to be good at interviewing people to get their stories and do ethical storytelling. And we're not going to go down that rabbit hole because we could be here for hours talking about that, but start Googling ethical and trauma informed storytelling. And you'll find lots of stuff out there, but you can use AI. Once you write your story, put it in the AI and tell the AI to make it more compelling, make it more interesting, make it what's the right term? I want to say
Emotional.
connote, but it's not emote, like emote some feelings, right? Make the AI will churn out something that's more like this. Or have somebody who's a really good writer take a stab at putting these together. Again, that's a place where you can engage your board or some volunteers who are good writers. Maybe people on your development committee, maybe you need to recruit some people who are, marketing folks who write stories. So there's a big difference in those. And you can do that. You can do that. It takes some practice, but you can do it. So any questions on that? You don't have to quite make it over the top as the Cinderella story, but you get the idea. So do you want me to keep going, Sabrina?
Yes.
Okay. Timing and logistics, just a quick summary, and there's more about this in the workbook. Your year-end campaign should last 5 to 6 weeks at the most. It can run from Giving Tuesday, so you can wrap Giving Tuesday up in your end of year, and in the folder that we're going to share with those of you that bought the workbook, you'll get some extra materials too. One of the extra materials is a Giving Tuesday calendar and plan that you can use. And you can also find it on the Giving Tuesday website. They do such a good job if you're going to do Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday is a very active donor day in the year. So the last 3 days of the year and Giving Tuesday are the biggest giving days of the year. So you want to run your year end all the way up till 11:59 p.m. on December 31st. You probably don't want to send your last appeal at 11:59, but you want to make sure that you're sending 5 or 6 email asks during the year end period. Asks, 5 or 6 asks, period. You want to send other emails that are engaging, that tell stories of your participants and your programs, that are whatever you want to send out there. Introduce some of your staff, talk about how the exciting things you have coming up in the year, whatever it is. And there are some examples in the workbook as well, but you only want to ask about 5 or 6 times during that period.
Yeah. And for those that are like linear people like myself, that's once a week, 5 to 6 weeks, 5 to 6 emails asking. That's once a week, but you can't just send the email that's asking. That's what Libby is saying.
No,
I call it
that's
the
right.
sandwich. You're going to say, you're going to send a gratitude, ask for something email, and then you might send another education email, but you got to sandwich it, and it's not just about asking.
That's right. Um, and then you can take that linear approach, or here's another suggestion for you too. Send 1 or 2 asks on Giving Tuesday and the remaining 4 or 5 on the last 3 days of the year. And then you hit the biggest giving days. But in between, you can't just let people go cold. You've got to keep them excited, warmed up. You can always have a soft ask in your emails that aren't hard asks. So in a hard ask email, it's like, will you please make a gift today? A soft ask is just having a donate now button or a donate link or if it's a letter, an envelope in there, but not make a direct ask. People can always opt into giving. That's what you want to do, is provide them a way where they can give if they feel like it, but you're not making a hard ask. Um, so, you have to make sure that you are cultivating and stewarding during the year end, without making asks a lot more than you're making asks, a lot more. You should always, 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 anytime, all the time, be engaging. That's cultivating and stewarding way like 5 times more than you're asking ever, at least 5 times more. And know that video is gold. People will watch a video 100 times over reading these days. So make sure you're sending acknowledgments for donations really quickly within 24 hours. That's another thing. That's another reason to have a donor relationship management tool, because you can set up automatic acknowledgement. So as soon as somebody donates, they get an email that is their receipt, their acknowledgement of their gift. And that tells them, hey, they got my donation. At least I know they got it, right? That's the first thing that donors need to know, is you got their donation. The money landed in your account. Make sure you don't re-ask people during your year end that gave already. That's a big mistake. Don't make that mistake. And if you have a CRM and you set your campaign up in the CRM, then people who give won't get another ask, but you've got to double check, triple check, quadruple check that is the case. You don't want to re-ask. That's a no-no. So, all right. Any questions on that? This is something I'm super passionate about. Are you okay, Sabrina, if I keep rolling?
Yes.
Once people make asks, you've got to move into stewardship mode. Stewardship mode is where we fall down in the nonprofit sector. We do
Amen.
not do a good job of stewarding our donors, and that's why we don't retain them. They move on to another organization that does a good job of stewardship. They're not going to stick with you if you don't clearly help them understand the following 3 things. And you can't ask for a next gift until your donors clearly understand these 3 things. Stewardship is also cultivation for the next gift. So here's what donors need. This is based on research that Penelope Burke has done of many thousands and thousands and thousands of donors. And they said very clearly, these are the 3 things I need to know after I donate, if I'm going to donate again to an organization. And 80% of donors will donate to you one time and never donate to you again. Remember that number. You don't want to be in that category. So the first thing they need to know is that, besides the fact that you got their gift and you sent them an acknowledgement to let them know that, you need to make sure they understand that you actually need their gifts. Like, you need it. You rely on that, right, to do your services and help people. That you appreciate them and their support, and that you use their donations as you said you would in the ask. So whatever you say you're going to use their money for when you're asking for money, you are legally required to use it for that. And you need to tell donors that you did. You don't need to say it just like I said it, but thank you for your donation. Your donation helped us too, or helped these people, or got these animals into houses, whatever it is, right? Um, the second thing that they need to know is that you are good stewards of donor monies, meaning that you account for every penny and you use it wisely. And there are different ways to show that, but you've got to demonstrate that to them. You're a good organization that is run well. That's what they want to know. And that you see them, you know how much money they've given, you know when they gave, and that you account for it. Okay. And the third thing they need to know, and this is really important, is the impact of their donations. So the outcomes that were achieved by the people or whoever you're helping, the environment, animals, whatever it is, and then the community level impact, the broader impact that you achieved through the deployment of their donations. So you're never going to tell one single donor, unless it's a really major, big donor, you know, here's the impact you had all by yourself, but it's the notion of here's the impact that was achieved by our donors. And this is what we were able to achieve because of these donations, right?
And one of
So,
the things that I wanted to add there is when
sure.
you are doing your stewardship, you need to make sure you, for me, use donor-centered language. So because of you, we were able to do this. Or
Uh-huh.
because of your investment in our organization, this happened. So we
Perfect.
wanted it really to be a donor-centered
Yeah.
language. And for those who's like, well, what's stewardship? It's simply saying thank you, right? It's good manners to say thank you. And for the industry that we're all heart people, right? Because we got in this because we want to solve a problem. As Libby said, we don't do a good job at saying thank you.
Mhm.
So I wish we could get down to the why of it, but I know sometimes it's, you get the gift, you're happy to get it, and you move on to the next thing, and you just don't make the time to say thank you. Well, that's why, as Libby said, we keep losing donors
Yep.
because we don't say thank you. So this is really key to say thank you.
Mhm.
That's why we're saying August, September, October, say thank you, say thank you, say thank you, say thank
Mhm.
you, because this is what people are saying that they need to
Yeah.
give again and again and again.
In the workbook, I love that you brought up the donor-centered language. There's a checklist for your appeals to go through and check. Does my appeal have this? Does it have that? One of them is that it's critically important that you are using the you word um, way more than you're using the word, right? It's not about your organization. It's not. It's about the donor and the people that you serve or the animals that you help or the environment that you're protecting, whatever it is. So just keep that in mind. They really don't care all that much about your organization in order to give, but they do want to know after they give that you are solidly run, you are well run, and you account for all the money that you get.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you for that.
and again, Libby, she gave a checklist there, but that's one of the, I've helped clients and Libby has helped clients too, write their appeal letters
Yeah.
together with them because that's what we're looking for. How many times did you use we as opposed to you? Are you are you emoting? I did a workshop with and I can't remember with who, but what came out of that workshop is everybody in that room had given, every single one had given. And the one thing that we all had in common was it wasn't a planned gift, it was an emotional gift.
Yes.
Every
Yes.
single one of us. We saw something that inspired us to give, or we read something that
Yeah.
inspired us to give.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. That's why really focusing on your appeal letters. And if you're not good, I mean, with AI, you should be okay. But with AI, it's all about what prompts are you giving it. That's the
Yes,
deal.
that is true.
So it really is, it behooves you to use the workbook, get the sample letters, but then share that out with people to make sure it makes them feel something and that it's donor centered and not organization centered.
Yeah, and I think towards the end of the session, we could I could share my screen, or you could share your screen, and we could just show them what's in the folder, because there's a
Yes,
lot in there.
yes,
And it's worth way more than the $27 you're going to pay. You'll
yes,
get the workbook and a whole bunch of helpful tools, like really helpful tools.
yes.
So I think that would be. Do you want me to keep going, or you want
Oh,
to go?
sorry, is it me? I can't see anything other than my screen. You have
No,
to tell me.
it's whatever
Um,
you want to do. Yeah, if you want to take this.
I can cover this one. So,
Okay.
again, going back to that CRM system, you got to ensure that your system and your process, your people, and your technology are in good order, right? So, making sure that if whatever platform that you're using, that you set up your campaign in that donor relationship management system. You create your end of your donation form and web page, because this is not designed, this piece is not designed for the in-person piece. This is all digital, right? You're going to design your letters, you're going to design your emails, your social media posts, you're going to queue them and schedule them. This day and age, with emails and social media, you can pre-schedule everything. Everything. So if you're using Facebook, right, with Meta Business, you can pre-schedule up, I think, like 30 days out. So you can pre-schedule all of these things. Emails, whether you're using ConvertKit, which happens to be my favorite. I started out on MailChimp, but I like ConvertKit. Both MailChimp, ConvertKit, or if you happen to be on Network for Good as your CRM system is already built in, you can pre-schedule these emails. Now, line up the people you need to help. If you choose to go the peer-to-peer campaign route, then you're going to need to get some people that are going to be those peers, that are going to serve as the ambassador, that's going to be pushing the information out across the social media platforms or the email platforms, so that different circles are getting that same communication. And so the other thing that we didn't quite talk about would be recruit donors who will put up a match. I absolutely love this one. And I'm telling you, getting a match gift, that's how I introduce board giving to my organization. Because everybody always say, well, how do you introduce board giving if your board has never given before? I had a donor that said, if 100% of your board gives, I will match it up to $10,000. They were going to give me the 10,000, right? But I said, can I use this as a match? And they agreed to that. So take the time now to start looking for some possible match donors. And then you're just going to test and retest and test again all your systems to make sure they work properly. Now, you know, you got to test and retest and do all that, because even in this process of signing up for this, somebody said the emails ain't coming through. And I thought I had tested and retested. So tech, it is going to be funny sometimes. And that's why you test and retest and test and retest. And give yourself grace again if it doesn't work out the first time out the chute. But you're going to be doing this over a course of time. And so you just have to make sure your systems are in play. Now, the next thing, and maybe I don't know, some people might ask, well, what platforms do you use, or what systems, what CRM system? There's so many out there. You need to look at them and see what comes easy for you. So, like for a couple of organizations that I'm with Viva, which is Village in the Valley, we started out with Give Lively as our donation platform. We've since migrated over to Give Butter. We haven't picked our CRM system yet, but we are in the process. From my organization, prior organization, for CRM system, they use Bloomerang. For the museum board that I'm on, they use Donor Perfect, and they use BidPal as their platform. There's, oh my God, there's so many.
Yeah.
out there. There's Bloomerang, there's Donor Perfect, there's Network for Good.
Mhm.
There's several. Look at them and see which system works best for your organization. Libby,
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a
Yeah,
fundraiser.
I know. I think that was great. I thank you. I do have a hard preference for Bloomerang for small organizations that are just starting and they don't have experience with a CRM because it is so easy to use. And it's really easy to look at, and it has a couple of really nice features to it. Like what temperature are your donors as far as engagement and their giving. So you can do a search and find all the people in your system who are cold with their engagement, and that tells you who you need to engage.
Yeah,
And you can look at the people that are hot with their engagement and know that it's time to ask, or time to ask them to increase their gift, upgrade it, or renew, or whatever, recommit. So I do like Bloomerang. I do have a bias for that one. I
yeah,
just
yeah.
find it, to be
It's
easy to
easy.
use.
It's an easier one to use. And now that Bloomerang, not that this is a commercial for Bloomerang, but we're just
Yeah.
sharing what we know, is now that they've acquired QGive, now
Yep.
you have a fundraising platform
That's right.
alongside your CRM system. So
Yeah,
they're
which
coming
helps you,
all in
yeah,
one.
which
So
helps you with event stuff, right? And
right,
like all that,
right.
silent auctions or whatever, tickets,
Yeah.
all those things. So, and so, well, yeah,
So
you might, yeah, go ahead.
so I guess at this point, I am going to share what's in the workbook.
Good. And
And
share,
then,
yeah, let's share that folder too and show them what's in there. That's
okay,
great.
I'm gonna
Thank
stop
you.
share. Y'all give me grace and space, please. Be nice to her. Be nice to Sabrina. Libby knows what she's doing. It's Sabrina on this end that kind
Oh,
of be.
I wouldn't go that far, Sabrina. Don't give me too much credit.
Uh, so let's look. I think I got it up now. So let's look at this. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Okay, let's do this. I'm working with two screens too, so that's the other
Mm.
piece of this puzzle. Okay,
See, you're doing better than me. I just have one screen.
so this is, you can see all the back end, right? I'm not even going to
Uh-huh.
try to put it on screen presentation. So this is the, open this up. So this is the actual workbook here. And within the workbook, as you going through the workbook, it sequences everything for you. It's 29 pages, right? It has the first time the first time donor packet is there because that's really key. Again, when somebody first gives to your organization, whether it's online, in person, doesn't matter. You want to send them a welcome packet. That is going to differentiate you from other organizations. Also, we talked about that ongoing communication with donors. So there's a newsletter in here, newsletter sample, so that you can make sure that you're having that ongoing communication. There's that ongoing communication, that's cultivation. There's top 6 ways to cultivate. So again, that is in there and why it is important to cultivate. And the place for you to put your notes as you're going through that fundraising process, which is my favorite thing, just to remember where you want your board at. You're not going to judge them because they won't ask, because that's only 5% of fundraising. If you can get them to do the 60, which is cultivating, the 15, which is stewardship, that's going to move you in the right direction. Here's where Libby was talking about how to develop that case statement, that case for support. The steps that you need to do that, it's in here, what it is, how it has to be. It really is your foundation for fundraising. That the components of it, that emotional opening, the mission statement, the vision, the need, it lays it all out here for you. And what those things specifically need to have as far as the content of it, right? So you're not out there willy-nilly and around. This workbook, you don't have to. One of the things that people say is, yeah, I can Google that. Yes, you can Google it. We've already done it, but not only have we already done it, we put it all in one place and we have sprinkled our expertise on it. Because you can find a document on Google that's a random document that hasn't lived in the real world, but because we have the real world experiences as fundraisers, we know that that doesn't work. This is how we adjust that. So this is also, it's going to tell you what is ethical storytelling, because you do not want to just make up stories, right? And also, this is this thing called poverty porn. I know this is not what this training is
Yes.
about, but this is thing called poverty porn, where he's like, oh, help the poor kids, or help these people over here, they're starving. And that's poverty porn. We're not trying to do that. We are trying to make sure that people are giving where their values align without labeling or demoralizing the people that we're serving. And I can say that because for a long time working in the youth development industry, or for a long time, we work with at-risk kids. Now look at that word, at risk. How many of you want to be labeled at risk? I know
Right.
I don't. So we have to look at the words that we use. And so for 50 years, this organization worked with at-risk youth. And then finally we looked at the language and said, when people think at risk, they think, well, what do you think when you think at risk?
I think they're bound to do something bad, right?
Bound to do something bad. There was the poor kids from the wrong side of town, and they're destined to do something bad. That's the label that we were walking around. So we've changed that, and it took a huge change to those who need us the most. So think about the language that you're using when you're doing ethical storytelling. And we've linked to that information. And we continue to tell you really lay into how do you write that great case statement and the process for getting feedback on that and sharing different samples and helpful articles for you. Libby showed you one online. The link for that actual one is here, as well as some other case statements that might fit and help you. And then it has in here the targets for your year end. How many retained donors did you have from last year? What's your target? What was your target? What was your actual? What are you going for? So around those retained, those lapsed, those re-engaged, the new donors. See, this is very intentional. This is not going into something willy-nilly saying we just gonna do an end of the year campaign and we don't have any goals and we don't know what we're tracking or what we're looking for. This forces you again to pause and plan so that you can execute and increase your year ending. Why? Because people are going to give. People are generous. And we're trying to help you position yourself to be the recipient of the gifts that people are giving.
Mhm.
So here's the end of year fundraising toolkit. Again, that word segment. Now, ignore these acronyms. This is industry talk. All that means is these are your lapsed donors. Okay, we already talked about that.
I was going to ask who knew what those meant, Libunts and Cybunts.
You want to define those because you will see those out there. I didn't know
Yeah.
them, but definitely tell the people what those mean.
And I put a U in there. There's not really a U in there. But
Right.
anyway, it's last year, but not this year. So a donor that gave last year, but has yet to give this year. Cybunt is some year, but not this year. So maybe they gave 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. All those people are more likely to give to you than somebody who's never given to you, just so you know. So if you've let your donors lapsed, you can work to get them back. And that will be a better outcome than trying to get brand new donors.
Yes. So those are your
Anyway.
lapsed donors. That's really what that is. And then you have a place here again where you can put your notes. And then here here are the emails that we're giving you. So you don't have to, not that you don't have to think, but it's a great starting point for you because we are aware of the limited time that you may have. So we've done the research for you, and you have the campaign planner that has the links, that's done all that in one place, so you don't have to go out and Google it again. And then we shared some of the best practices with you for a successful year end, and giving you fundraising template letters, which are all in here. Because what are we going to do? We are going to use snail mail. And it's not just for the boomers. The millennials like the snail mail too.
That's right.
That's right. So don't be like, we ain't using snail mail. And look, I can tell y'all, it's expensive mailing. So is it an investment? Yes. I just mailed out 226 postcards. It cost me $221 to mail out 226 postcards. So I know that it is an investment. But what we're telling you is the investment is worth the effort. Because if we continue to say, well, I posted that on Facebook, or we sent out the emails, or we did that, but if no one is, first of all, if you're relying just on social media, that's algorithms. And you could have 5,000 people. That's if you have 5,000 people following you, and maybe only 600 of them might see your post. And that's being generous.
Yep.
That's being very generous.
Yep.
Most of us have 1 or
Yeah.
2,000 people, and maybe 60 people will see our post.
Yeah. Yeah. Social media is not the place. If you're doing only social media, you are leaving a lot of money out there, because social media is not a good way to raise money, at least not right now. It's not
It is
yet.
not.
And it
Not
may
yet.
never be, because of what Sabrina just said. Most people are never even going to see your ask on social media.
Yeah. Unless you're willing to invest in paid ads, and that can get expensive and it's tricky as well, then
Mm.
it's not going to help. And especially if, this is what I've seen a lot of nonprofits do too. They don't continually engage on social media, and they only post when they are having a fundraiser.
Mhm.
So you've already told Facebook or Instagram, but now it's all Meta. You've already told Meta that you are not a frequent poster. And because
Yeah.
you're not a frequent poster, just because all of a sudden this 5-6 weeks you start posting, they look at over time engagement.
Mhm.
And it's a computer. And
Yeah.
so they need data to know that you're engaged, so then they can push it out. The more you post, the more they can push out. But if you're
Yeah.
just coming on when I have a special event or when I'm doing year end, you don't have enough. So please don't rely just on social media. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the emails here. Now, emails is better for engagement, but that's if you've been communicating again along the way. If your people are not used to getting emails from you, that's going to be a heavy lift as well. That's why start now.
Mhm.
Start now. Send out an email now saying thank you. Hey, summer's almost ended. Whatever it is, you got to start engaging now.
Yeah.
A good open rate. I think they said a good open rate for email, and Libby correct me if I'm wrong. I've always heard 25% or more. I know for mine, I get like 40% open rate.
Yeah.
But guys, anybody on my new email list know I'm sending out constant,
Yeah.
like, once a week, newsletter goes out, or at least twice or 3 times a week. So it's all about that consistency. So anyway, sorry. So you get your samples letters here, and you notice, short to the point. They have that emotional appeal to it. Everything is here. Email 4. We're not asking you to think about anything. So it's all here. And as you get towards here, it gives you some additional things that you can do along the way, some more best tips, and then the stewardship. How do you say thank you? Because that's important. The donation, the donor journey doesn't start once you get the gift. You have to keep going. And so it gives you those strategies around stewardship because it's gonna make a difference. And then it has a place for notes. And here's the tech piece right there, which we talked about. And this me. I don't know if you got Libby and I confused, but this is Sabrina. I know our hair is kind of similar sometimes. And then that's Libby, right? And it has our contact information there. But the more exciting part of this, and hopefully you can still see it, you still see everything. What you're going to get is the end of year fundraising toolkit, as well as the development plan. It's a development plan you plug and play. You're going to get some more additional fundraising email templates. You'll get some fundraising metrics. You'll get a gift chart, as well as the Giving Tuesday calendar, and then the scheduling for the year-end email and social media campaign. All of this for $27. The time that you're going to save and trying to Google this and put it all together under one umbrella, we have saved that time for you. So we're over time. Sorry. We want to answer any questions that you have.
Also, while you're thinking of your questions, when you talked about a welcome kit, I just made a donation to Best Friends Animal Sanctuary. If you want to know how to do good fundraising, pop on their website. They are incredible, and you'll get some ideas. But look at this welcome kit and see the back of the envelope.
One dog. And he's so cute.
Yeah. I love that it says, let's make history together. I thought this was really great. I haven't opened it yet, but I'm excited about it. I just got it. So